Aguantemos un poco más, el día está a punto de finalizar. Tenemos con nosotros a Romeo Baguidi, que es presidente del Laboratorio de Estudios de Migraciones Africanas, LEMAFRIC, que es un think tank estratégico con base aquí en Madrid. Él es doctor en Ciencias Sociales por la Universidad Carlos III de Madrid y es profesor en varias universidades en temas de mediación, de gestión de conflictos, de relaciones internacionales, de estrategia, etc. Fue el director del Centro Hispanoafricano del Gobierno Regional de Madrid y coordina muchas iniciativas de capacitación en el ámbito de la defensa de los derechos de los inmigrantes africanos, así como el reforzamiento de su participación en la sociedad civil y en la política. Romeo, muchas gracias por dejarte liar esta tarde con nosotros, con esta iniciativa de diálogo mediterráneo. Así que escuchemos también la voz, yo creo, del Sahel, ¿no?, que quizás ha sido un gran ausente en la sesión de hoy, pero que, sin embargo, tiene una importancia capital y cada vez más. Bienvenido. Muchísimas gracias.
Muchísimas gracias. Mi agradecimiento muy caluroso a Juan Ángel Soto, presidente de Fortius, por liarme, por la invitación para atender este evento que me parece muy importante y también por darme la oportunidad de compartir algunas palabras, ¿no?, en esta sesión de presentación, toda la jornada del White Paper on Informal Migration in the Mediterranean. Me ha pedido que hablase en inglés, entonces lo voy a hacer. Es verdad que el inglés también ha sido lengua de trabajo para mí, con lo cual, bueno, voy a intentar, aunque ya estoy mucho más acostumbrado al castellano, al francés y esto. ¿Vale? So congratulations to Fortius Foundation and Principios teams for the great and hard work. I can say that it is a valuable and very important document you have elaborated. So I had the time to really read it and to make some aspect that I can criticize or take another view. No? As we all know and probably agree with, migration has been part of humanity from antiquity to the present days, but never did it play a prominent role as it did in the last half century, when more humans decided or were forced to migrate than before. Currently, we live in the age of unprecedented human mobility within the boundaries of countries and beyond that. The large-scale human mobility seems to be a major trend in the 21st century. Due to different reasons, the geography of migration has been changing. For example, Europe altered from the land of immigrants to the land of immigrants. Far before the mid-20th century, Europeans were major immigrant populations, and millions of them immigrated to America, Australia, New Zealand, and part of Africa. Conversely, in the late 20th century, this steady flow nearly stopped, and Europe has turned into destination for migrants from Middle East, the Caribbean, Africa, and Asia. Several factors are attributed to this change, such as growing economic inequality between rich and poor nations, demographic patterns like slow growing, aging population in developing states, they have been talking about it before, younger, faster growing population in Africa, Latin America, and South Asia, ethnic hostility and political unrest in many parts of the world, cheaper and faster means of transportation, new technologies leading to instant communication between immigrants and their families and friends at home, amongst a myriad of other factors that has reshaped the societies. The number and magnitude of African migration to Europe is rising due to several reasons. As you can imagine, I will focus on the African migration so that you can have this view, as well as Juan said. But one of the examples of this increasing of the number of African migration is, for example, the Arab Spring. That has had a particular result on immigration of thousands from Africa and Middle East to Europe. Also, the number of illegal border crossing in the European Union pours as thousands of Africans continues to arrive at the Italian island of Lampedusa following the Arab Spring. The factor that induced high migration flow from Africa is numerous and varies across the continent. Deteriorating security, human rights abuse, and economic challenges are recurring challenges. These problems have been observed in most African countries, but more pronounced in Libya, Central African Republic, and South Sudan, to just mention a few number of them. The current political stalemate in many other countries like Chad, Mali, Nigeria, and Sudan are adding up to the urge of immigrants to Europe. African migrants are using various means, various ways and routes to reach European countries such as air, land, and sea transport, as we all know. Also, crossing through the Mediterranean Sea has expanded. This route has various directions and depends on where migrants start their journey. It has become a major passageway. The most trafficked route among Europe is the southern perimeter. At the Europe southern perimeter is the central Mediterranean passage, which is from Libya to Italy. The route is served as the key entry point to Europe and currently the most regular migrant and asylum seeker from Middle East and African countries such as Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq, Ethiopia, Eritrea, Egypt, Somalia, amongst other users of this passage. The Mediterranean route from Libya to Italy has received the weight of the recent wave of irregular migration. Other routes used by irregular migrants is the Western Mediterranean route to Spain from West African countries such as Guinea, Mali, Senegal, Gambia. These migrants try to reach Europe, mainly the Canary Islands, using locally made boats known as patera and cayucos. At the end of 2023, many experts had been warning that 2024, this year, was going to be a particularly significant year in terms of irregular migration. Well, it has been proved that it was not alarmist, and the data continues to be seen in this way, in which this drama of irregular migration is experienced every day. It was remembering in this regard, and as it has been held in this report, the report we are presenting today, that as March 2024, more than 40,000 irregular entries has been recorded, with the eastern route being the busiest, following by an increase of the African and Western Mediterranean routes, to the detriment of Central and Balkan routes. The increase in irregular arrival that has been observed in recent years has led several European Union countries to temporarily reinstating border control since 2023, and especially in this year, 2024. It's important, however, to notice that European migration management assumes as its main strategy the outsourcing of border control, relying on third countries such as Turkey and Morocco, as well as Tunisia or Libya. However, new debates, as they have underlined in this report, are emerging, and several southern countries are requesting greater and more equitable coordination and financing to assure control. Even with the new European Pact, which sought to alleviate pressure on southern countries through better contribution, the situation in Southern Europe demonstrated a limited response to irregular migration. In this sense, it is important to question the almost exclusive perspective of the European perspective in immigration control strategy. But also, we have to recognize and point out the passivity of countries of origin in this matter. Some of them simply continue to refuse to recognize that their citizens migrate irregularly to the main destination countries mentioned in this report. However, they are willing to accept significant aid promised to them to ensure their involvement in these migration control actions. So it's important to question ourselves about this manner of acting. Regarding stock as well as we know, the southern Mediterranean countries of Europe are among the member states which the highest number of irregular migrants residing in the entire European Union countries, as they have specifically talking about Italy, for example, who is the second, Spain, who is the fifth, etc., etc. One of the biggest challenges, and that was interesting for me to underline as well, is tracking data about irregular migration, who is the lack of tracking irregular migration that could incorporate available and actualize local, regional, and national data that encompass all entries or circumstances surrounding irregular migration. We can see that the externalization of border control, as I have been mentioned before, in many European Union countries, as in Spain and Italy, has become one of the main migration policies. They have agreements, like Italy has agreement with Tunisia or Libya, under which it was agreed to provide resources, vehicles, training, or funding to the security forces of these countries, as well as establishing mechanisms for the containment and management of migrant flows, or coordinating efforts to dismantle human trafficking networks and smuggling. However, why does this measure not work? Perhaps it is because the security vision still has more weight than a humanitarian consideration of migration management. I can recall that, for example, His Majesty the King of Morocco put in the focus on the humanitarian part of the migration. And that's one of the things that all African countries are trying to follow as this leader, I can say. But the new European Migration Pact was criticized, as they have mentioned before as well, among many other reasons, because it's superficialized, addresses the migration. The migration issues is not very well took in account, restricting migrants' rights and tightening the requirement and guarantee international protection. The restrictive approach also responds, as we can notice, to the increase in the negative perception, the negative narrative of irregular and general migration, which is considered by many as a foreign invasion. But we can notice that with the data that we manage, that there is no invasion, but the perception is like that. As we can see right now, that there are many of our brothers and sisters and minors who are coming through the Canary Islands every day, as you mentioned before. We have to, however, I can say it is striking that while this pact is being criticized, some countries of origin of irregular migration, or African countries I mean, are those that want to impose more restrictions on their citizens who use regular ways to immigrate. You can imagine that some African countries are asking other countries to impose visa for their citizens who want to go to another country by plane. So there are certain, I just I'm pointing this out to see that you can't want something and it's opposite, you know. As it seems that human beings who decide or are forced to take the path of irregular migration should not be taken into account, let us remember here that irregular migrants are highly vulnerable, often falling prey of human through their transit, traffickers, and facing economic instability due to their undocumented status. This vulnerability persists from their own countries of origin and upon arrival in their destination countries. No country is spared from migration, which has gradually become a major priority for the international community. As legal avenues of departure become scarcer, many migrants opt for irregular migration. Almost 20 years ago now, I mean towards 2006, the aim, at least at the African Union level, was to highlight Africa's broad consensus on migration and development issues based on two observations. Well-managed migration has a substantial positive impact on the development of both origin and destination countries. Poorly managed and unmanaged migration can have negative consequences on the well-being of both host countries and migrants, including the potential destabilizing effects on national and regional security. So I think that this objective, this goal, is still relevant today and should enable the definition of a strategic approach which addresses the problems linked to the movement of people, the protection of the rights of legally established communities, as well as link between migration and development. I therefore consider that the recommendations proposed by Mediterranean Dialogue in this study are very appropriate, as they have mentioned in the panel before. Regional strategy, proactive and comprehensive approach, mitigating blackmail, integration policies, real integration policies, because we all know how the policies are implemented and how they are later foreign, and also a real evaluation of the strategic plans that are implemented. As I said at the beginning, it is an excellent document, and I think that it's time to let you as well make some questions so that we can focus on some concrete aspect if you want. Thank you very much. As I've asked Juan, I would like you to be free as if you have some minutes so that we can have an interaction. As a professor, I prefer the interaction and be able to give some more concrete explanation about our vision, our African manner of seeing the things, than making a mere speech, you know.
Well, thank you, Romeo. I'll go ahead and ask. You're too shy or too tired. So what do you think the EU should be doing with the Sahel region, similar or differently than what it is doing currently with the North African countries? Also, is it a comparable context, you know, politically, socially, economically, etc.? So, are good practices can they be kind of replicable in the Sahel region, and are bad practices in North Africa could those work by contrast in the Sahel region? So that would be one question. So from the EU perspective, we tend to not look beyond
North Africa when we speak of informal migration? And also, what do you think should be the appropriate course of action for North African countries when it comes to those, to the southern border?
Yeah, one of the main situation we are facing now at the Sahel part is that there are, and many experts are talking about it, there are so many people who want to decide in the place of the local, the native deciders, instead of just accompanying, instead of being what we call instead of being in an horizontal manner of taking the thing. No, they want to impose. Due to the fact that the EU is the one who has the means, financial means, and the one who can promise the all types of ways to tackle with certain situation. But if really, the European Union can sit and hear what people locally want in the Sahel, things will be going better. Just because, and I can assure it, the deciders, the political deciders and other civil society members, they don't want the European Union to be out of the Sahel. Really, no, they don't want. They just want to have the same table that, okay, what can you give me? What can I propose to you? What can the other part give to me? But not in the same way that you are our partner and other can't be the partner in that way. But there are other points, is the security point, the fight against terrorism. And this, in this part as well, I think that there are too many impositions from the European Union. They know it. We can't say that they don't know it, but they're here, and it goes through this part. Because we used to say the one who have how do you call it? The one who have the money is the one who can tell you how to do things. But now we are not thinking like this. At least the leaders are not thinking like that. They want just to be their own deciders. No. The second part of the question you asked me is that really. And I think that is important to know that there have been many strategic plans. From 2006, they have been evaluating this plan of the African consensus position on migration development. For example, they have been evaluating it at the African Union level last July in Cotonou, for example. And they see that there are certain good ideas who have been implemented, but at the moment of evaluating, they can't say that they are good practices, because in the midway, things that go forwards. Why? Why? Because we don't have a clear leadership, or we don't leave the clear leadership for the countries, for example, the northern part of Africa that have experience, that have the relationship, a more dynamic relationship, for example, with Europe, to guide the others. Why? Why? Because when we are externalizing the borders, as I said before, from Europe, the externalization go through Agadez in Niger. And Agadez, so really, who can control this part of externalization? Niger, but Niger doesn't have it. Niger is not stable right now. And if we say that, for example, Morocco can play a good strategic paper, or Algeria, for example, you can ask them just their part of control, their part of really commitment, but not far from there. Because geopolitically it will be very complicated. So there are good practices. In that way, I used to recommend that we African or sub-Saharan African should look at the north part of African countries, mainly Morocco in my case, because I know Mali, Morocco for the migration stations. And we can also, due to other path of irregular migration, deal with Algeria or Tunisia. But we should really have a clear leadership about this and a good cooperation between these parts so that they can say that, okay, we have good example to follow from Côte d'Ivoire to Morocco, for example, or from Niger to Algeria, for example, you know. That's what I think. There are good examples, but the fact is to be able to sit down and listen to the people who really can decide and also know the other part of the realities.
Thank you for your speech. I just have a quick question. So currently Sudan is in a terrible war, a terrible conflict. Can we, or what should Europe, since we are in Europe, expect in terms of migration? Can we see, or will we see large flows of people being displaced by this conflict? Or can it be similar to other movements of people in past years, or is it being a bit alarmist to compare it to other events that were, in terms of migration, worse?
I understand. Can we receive people who?
Yes, can we expect a large flow of people like we experienced a decade ago, or is it?
The main people who are displaced due to conflict or terrorism are internal migration, but some, and many of them, of course, have to come and are coming to Europe due to it's important. They are forced to leave this part. I give you an example. We recently had from our colleagues from Mali that, for example, in various parts there, the Christian have been asking to the Christian, the terrorists, the jihadists have been asking to the Christian that they should pay. They should pay if they want to stay there yearly, you know. If not, you have to leave or you have to take the guns and fight, you know. So these things, the state is fighting against the terrorism and had a strategy. And the state is not acting on this part of the thing. So these people, they want to leave. And if they want to leave, they will look for the path, the routes to go outside. They don't want to make this internal migration, for example. It's a concrete example, you know, but just to see that, yes, due to terrorism and other facts, evidently we can have, as well in Europe, this kind of migration.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Where did you say that happened, that they forced the Christians to pay? In Mali.
In Mali. Yes.
But I believe that this practice has started since the ages of Prophet Muhammad. I'm not sure.
It's recent. It's about the jihadists, the terrorists. The terrorists, for me, are not Muslim. For me. Okay? It's very clear.
Thank you so much. And particularly, I'm so glad to hear finally a voice from the region of Sahel. And a very special thank to you for mentioning the royal vision about migration. I mean, the human side / humanitarian side of migration. My question will be about this beloved region, which is Sahel. I won't talk that much about the Moroccan engagement in favor of our brothers and sisters in the region of Sahel. You know better than me, I suppose. But let me focus on a special point. We all know that Sahel needs development, prosperity, progression, and particularly economic development. I think that the approach win-win is one of the best solutions. We have talked about what could Europe do, or what could the European Union do in favor of Africa, in favor of countries who are exporters of migrants, or maybe in favor of Sahel. But let me talk about what could African countries do in favor of the countries of Sahel, particularly in this dimension, or in this equation, the equation winning. And I would like to draw the attention I mean, about the royal initiative of Morocco with regard of giving maritime access to the enclaved countries in Sahel. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. You are right, and we have produced some papers on it that have about when we, in one of our recent publications in L'Afrique, we have Vision Afrique, and one of our colleagues, some of our colleagues, make a good paper about this royal initiative. But and that can go through the way of this win-win strategy. And I know that there are other initiatives between Morocco and other sub-Saharan countries and to implement development strategies in the countries, but as well to give security, protection to these people. And we have been talking about the Libyan Ministry of Minister of Foreign Affairs, and he also assured us that they are giving security to, for example, people who are coming from Sudan, or those who are coming from, I think, from some from Niger and this. And so it's important to consolidate this relation between African countries as well. And we know that Algeria also gives some very, very good support to Niger, and instead of what people can think between Niger and between Mali and Algeria, there are very good, very good collaboration. So these are some strategic collaboration between, as I was saying, the northern part of Africa, countries who had experience. And they are strategically, geostrategically situated so that they can push this leadership about migration, because most migration, African migration, is internal. More than 80%. More than 80% is internal migration. All the other part is just the way to go forward, to go to the other part. But if we have good situation as we have had before with the other countries, I think that people will like to stay in Africa instead of looking forward to coming to Europe. I don't say that it's not people can come, but they have to come regularly. That's why I was underlining the fact that some African countries are putting barriers to people who want to come legally. It's not possible. When we are talking about irregular migration and the difficulties to really tackle with this, if you want to put some barrier to people who go and who suffer, when they go, there will be irregular migrants, and that's all. And we have to recognize this part as well. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much.
Tan solo agradecerles su presencia en este día tan intenso y tan enriquecedor, tanto por los temas que se han discutido como por las personas que hemos conocido, que espero que haya sido también un día muy productivo en ese sentido, y conocer aliados, que con interés en hablar de los desafíos que tenemos enfrente, y a ser posible enfrentarse a ellos de una forma objetiva, basada en datos, evitando quizá entrar en discusiones, en definitiva, discusiones que no conducen a ningún puerto, y buscando lo mejor, yo creo, para el conjunto también de nuestras naciones, que naturalmente tienen intereses nacionales muy concretos, pero en general yo creo que esta cuestión de la migración informal es un desafío que todos compartimos por igual y que, por lo tanto, también podemos articular o colaborar en articular soluciones compartidas, para atajarlo. Gracias nuevamente a todos los ponentes, que veo que algunos también os habéis quedado posteriormente para escuchar el resto de ponencias, lo cual es pues enormemente agradecido. En nombre de la Fundación Fortius y de su iniciativa Diálogo Mediterráneo, y hago extensibles estas palabras también en nombre de su cofundadora, Tasnim Idris, aquí presente. Pues nada, agradeceros nuevamente vuestra presencia y, por favor, seguidnos, seguid nuestro trabajo. Estaremos encantados de colaborar con vosotros en el futuro, tanto en España como en toda la cuenca mediterránea. Nos vemos pronto. Hasta luego. Gracias.